Let's fucking go, buddy. Welcome to Player Profiler News Primetime. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, and joining me here today is Jeremiah Retzlaff, my co-host, as usual. Tonight, we're breaking down the latest news and updates from around the NFL, focusing on crucial injury reports that could impact your fantasy lineups moving forward. We'll dive into recent performances that matter and discuss what it means as your team heads into the week 7. We'll also recap the Lions' impressive victory over the Dallas Cowboys and analyze which players you should be bullish or bearish on moving forward. So, we have straightforward insights and real-time analysis. You'll have everything you need to make informed decisions for your fantasy roster. Jeremiah, let's jump right in with our top stories. Let's go. The Chicago Bears going off on the hapless Jacksonville Jaguars. Jeremiah, break this one down for us.
A dog walk city. The Jaguars lose at home because we know London is their destination. 35-16. Caleb Williams, an epic day. 226 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and interception. Hey, things happen, right? Caleb added 4 rushes for 56 yards. Caleb, 28.6 fantasy points in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. QB1 on the week heading into tonight's game. So the fantasy impact, you hope you didn't sell for 70 cents on the dollar in Dynasty. Jaden Daniels has catapulted ahead of Caleb Williams in the reactionary Dynasty market. Here we are, we're reactionary in real time, and Caleb needs to be back neck and neck with Jaden Daniels in the rankings. Give me Daniels with the edge in rushing, but this is certainly a champagne problem. Now, speaking of champagne problems, DeAndre Swift, RB6 on the week, 91 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. 4 receptions, 28 yards. While Roschon Johnson is getting snap share, there's plenty out there for DeAndre Swift. 3 straight games over 100 yards for Swift. Week 4, Swift was RB3. Week 5, he was RB2. So he's really had a phenomenal run here as a top 10 running back the last few weeks. It was a game of twos. 2 touchdowns for Cole Kmet, 2 for Keenan Allen. Kmet caught all 5 of his targets for 70 yards. Keenan Allen did the same for 41 receiving yards. DJ Moore, the week prior, was wide receiver 6 overall. He only got fantasy manager 6 points. Moore was tackled at the 1-yard line. It was very tilting. So there was more salvageable game to be had for Moore. Of course, there was divergence there between Moore getting the touchdown and then at the 1, Swift pounding it in. So I personally faced somebody who had Swift. I had DJ Moore. It happens, right? It's a seesaw event that'll happen. This was a very divergent game as well between both teams. So that really was a theme. So the fantasy takeaway is you want Bears in your lineup through the volatility. Kmet and Allen paid off in lineup leagues. In managed leagues, you still want to start DJ Moore. You want to be a little bit more tepid in your reservation for Roma Dunze, but just understand anything happens to, be it Kmet, Allen, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze needs to be in your lineups. Don't cut him in redraft. You have to stay through. Of course, we know rookies can ascend up. It's not always linear, as we've seen with people like BTJ or Malik Neighbors. Just ask Marvin Harrison Jr. So the Bears have a bye in week 7. They draw the Commanders and Cardinals in weeks 8 and 9. So I would say buy low on Roma Dunze and redraft. Into the bye week, not doing much. That's a good pocket opportunity to go take on that week of non-production. If you're a rebuilding team in Dynasty, this is a really good sell window, though, for Keenan Allen. You got to say goodbye. You have to play up being in that high volatility or high upside offense with the PPR goodness. And you have to understand, too, take advantage of the psychology of an island game that we had in London on your Sunday morning for your breakfast there with your mimosas. So let's pivot to the Jaguars. There is no way that Doug Peterson can keep his job after this debacle. The Jaguars are 1-5 and directionless, and actually, they're stuck in London. So we said last week, Trevor Lawrence playing well versus the Colts, it doesn't move the needle in Dynasty. We want to see week-over-week production. 234 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception is just simply okay. Lawrence is currently tonight QB 14. Just sounds very mid to me. I got a good feeling at least Josh Allen can be in the top 14 and bump Trevor Lawrence right there to QB 15 for the week. Again, a mid performance. Gabe Davis, he helped your best ball shares. Wide receiver 5 in PPR leagues heading into tonight. Davis has 5 catches. He had 45 yards and 2 touchdowns. So imagine somebody drunk betting a bunch of 2 touchdown games while drinking those mimosas for brunch yesterday. They would have cashed out and done really well. Speaking of best ball, Evan Ingram came through for the tight end position this week. 10 receptions, 102 yards, an excellent safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence. 18.2 PPR points, has him as tight end 3 on the week. So the landscape of tight end this year, if Evan Ingram is healthy, you start him. BTJ, 3 for 27, a dud, dropped a touchdown. It just wasn't his day. BTJ likely gets Christian Gonzalez against New England next week, but you're not likely in a position to bench him with all the injuries that have occurred. You also can't be scared of tough matchups. The worry meter for BTJ for me is 1 out of 10. My only worry, though, is Trevor Lawrence. Really, that's the only issue. Maybe a little bit of Ingram and Kirk buddying up with those underneath shares. Now for the running back position. Just as Tank Bigsby was taking opportunity share, Dearness Johnson muddies the carry share. Johnson 6 carries, Bigsby 7 carries, Etienne 3 carries, all for just tepid output. Whether Etienne is injured or not, he has not collectively had good output for fantasy. The fantasy impact in self-defense, they say get away, run away, right away. Between these 3 running backs, I would say get away, run away, right away. Doug Peterson is doing whatever he can to keep his job, so opportunity share is going to be fickle in this backfield. What do you make of that, Mike?
Wow. Well, I make of it is like I'm just assuming the Jaguars are just trying to figure out if the plane ticket is part of Peterson's severance package, if they can include it in that or not. But I have no idea why he's still the head coach after that loss. It's embarrassing. I've got a close friend who's a Jags fan, and he's just in shambles right now. He's just calling for Peterson's head. He's been having his head on a stick for weeks now, but it's not looking good there. And I feel bad. They're on the road again. They're in they're in London, and it's not looking any better. Like this Jaguars team could lose 4 or 5 in a row again here, and not looking good. And at least for Brian Thomas Jr., Tank Bigsby, they've been the bright spots. Evan Ingram coming back, like you mentioned, is also something to keep an eye on. But man, alive, not looking good.
It's a tough scene. It really is. It's a mess. And just talk about divergence. The Bears heading into their bye, things are looking on the up and up. They get a matchup with the Washington Commanders. So in the reactionary market, we're talking about Jaden versus Caleb. It's just building up for that matchup in week 8. So you love to see the directionality that these 2 rookies are going towards. Whereas with Trevor Lawrence, it's just very flat across the board. Now, Mike, we've had a lot of – keep going.
Well, I'm just going to say that on top of that, if you look at Caleb Williams' schedule heading up, I was like, is this his breakout time? And I was like, well, he hasn't faced – he faced the Panthers, and then he faced the Jaguars. And I was like, well, let's look at his schedule heading forward. And then I was like, oh, wait, he's got the Commanders, the Cardinals. And it's just like it's a cascade. So look for Caleb Williams to really start getting into his zone here, especially since that run game, like you mentioned, is hitting up. And what isn't on the up is these injuries. And I'm going to quick hit this one. Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath. Brace yourself, folks, because here it comes. Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. is in concussion protocol. Obviously, he left this week's game early, 0 fantasy points. Historically, players miss about a week. With Arizona playing on Monday night, there's maybe a 40% chance he could suit up, but I would doubt that. So look for Marvin Harrison Jr. to be missing this week. The Lions, Aiden Hutchinson. I know it's not fantasy related really, but he is now out. Done for the season. Huge blow for the Lions. Although it looks like there is some good news there, it's not going to cause long-term issues. Full recovery is expected. Chris Olave also in concussion protocol, and it's very likely he will miss week 7, seeing how the Saints play on Thursday night. So fantasy gamers, make adjustments. Rashid Shaheed also pulled up on the injury report today. Didn't practice. So that is another situation to monitor. That just came in recently. So interesting situation. That could just be a rest day and precautionary, knowing that Olave is in the protocol. So we have to keep an eye on Shaheed moving into the Tuesday, Wednesday reports here. Jaden Reed has an ankle injury. He did return to action, but in limited production. He seems likely to play in week 7, though a dip in effectiveness is expected. Anthony Richardson is recovering from that shoulder injury. Many thought that he was going to play this week, but data strongly favors his return this week, and that will be a boost for the Colts running game and maybe get them in a different situation. Joe Flacco has been great, but I think they really need to get their quarterback assessed and into game action. Christian McCaffrey dealing with the calf injury, aiming for a week 8 return week 8 return to practice, potential week 10. So Jordan Mason suffering that injury, looking like he might miss a week here. So Isaac Guerrero has been the talk of the waiver wire market here. Jeremiah, you want to give me a breather here? Talk a little bit about that San Francisco 49ers backfield and what you see happening, shaking out with McCaffrey maybe coming back week 9 to 10, and what you see it happening. Is Guerrero the guy?
I think what's happening here is Guerrero will get opportunity share in the event that Jordan Mason is out. He's a plug and play waiver wire. You put anybody in there. It could be Olandis Gary from back in the day in the Shanahan offense. The thing that worries me about McCaffrey is we're hearing all about this potential game return. And it just seems like this putting and punting to get Christian McCaffrey back on the field. So long as the 49ers are competitive, we have to think about the real life impact of the team. If they're pushing along and getting their victories, there may be less pressure to ramp up Christian McCaffrey returning until even later in the season. So I would just say plug and play Isaac Guerrero. And then, of course, Jordan Mason, when he comes back, I think he's done enough to have opportunity share in that offense to keep the job. But in the meantime, Isaac Guerrero, I think he has an opportunity to actually land in the end zone this week, should he get the start. Of course, he won't fall down. He did something that was, not selfish for the team. And that the guys are going to love him for that in there. So that's the outlook there. Speaking of somebody else who once ran out of bounds, Nick Chubb, he's on the mend from a knee injury, and he's looking at a week 7 return, but initial projections indicate he may only see 25 to 50% of the workload, ramping up over the next 4 weeks. So other Browns players, including Jerome Ford, are dealing with hamstring injuries with recovery timelines averaging about 2 weeks. Now, we spoke to the Jaguars. Travis Etienne left Sunday's game against the Bears, hamstring issue, did not return. Head coach Doug Peterson said Monday that Etienne is now considered week to week. We hear week to week, that's bad news. Once a bell cow back, Etienne hasn't seen more than 13 carries in a game this season and only had 6 in week 5 and 3 in week 6 before his exit. So his snap share is continually decreasing, dropping from 70% in week 1, 38% in week 5. The dreaded timeshare is what is going on here between Bigsby and Dearness Johnson. It's very fluky, and we talked about Doug Peterson's job being up in the air. I kind of see the backfield being up in the air next week between Johnson and Bigsby. What do you got for us, Mike, on the Commanders with Brian Robinson?
Yeah, Brian Robinson was a killer one, not getting into my lineup this week in a couple of my teams because he was a late scratch and he's recovering from that thigh injury. He should be back between this week and next, but the Commanders' run game, I think, definitely missed him this week. I think they would have had a better opportunity. I was really worried. Well, not worried. I was really disappointed when Brian Robinson was deemed inactive for that game because I just thought that he was going to add an element to really ring up that scoring in that game. It could have been a lot more prolific than what it was. That game I had pegged as like one for the ages, and it didn't quite live up to the hype. Some good games in that one, but not quite to where it needed to be. Now, Christian Watson, that hamstring injury, he had great stats this week, so I would expect him to get an increased target share over the next week or two, and he shouldn't be considered injury prone based on this situation. Now, we talked about Jordan Mason as well with the Christian McCaffrey injury, but Devontae Adams is projected to return from his shoulder injury in week 7 to 8, and he's gonna maybe be on the team. We don't know. So it'll be a situation to monitor. I'd be interested to see where Devontae Adams does ultimately land if he doesn't play another snap for the Raiders. Puka Nacua with that knee injury. Comments suggest a return likely around week 9, but we're looking at maybe a return for week 7 for Cooper Kupp. Really good situation headed for the Rams in fantasy football. If you think about the pass catchers the last couple of weeks, they've been without Puka, they've been without Cooper Kupp, so this looks good for them moving forward. Week 7, getting Cooper Kupp potentially back, and then weeks 8 or 9, Puka, that would be awesome. Jonathan Brooks is expected to return to practice soon after that ACL injury. He's got that upside, but I'm not sure the Panthers are willing to risk him and moving on. Just because they can ramp up that practice window doesn't necessarily mean they're going to use him based off of what we see there in Panther land, right there, Jeremiah.
Well, you're exactly right, and I'm sitting here just thinking about how Chuba Hubbard has played, and also we're really not getting aggressive language about ramp up. And Jonathan Brooks, what is the motive right now? Having the standings up, the Falcons, this was a divergent outcome. Falcons go up, Panthers go down. There's separation being created. Hello, bets on Raheem Morris for Coach of the Year a few weeks ago. Hopefully he rises up. The Falcons are 4-2, and the Panthers are here 1-5. What is the motivation? You have to think about that. What the motivation is for the Panthers to trot him out there. I would think eventually Jonathan Brooks will play, but I don't think there's any putting Chuba Hubbard back in the jar or back toothpaste back in the tube. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get enough of a timeshare that is ugly. And what's going to be beneficial to Jonathan Brooks? Take a look at what the Jets did with Breece Hall, trying to bring other people in when he came back. We wish cast so often in fantasy football, and we might just be wish casting the entire work backfield share for Jonathan Brooks here. I just forecast a more realistic timeshare that people won't necessarily love, but it'll be the best thing for the team and the best thing for Jonathan Brooks in his career.
Got a question here from Turgay Kaglar. Good luck with the stream. Thanks, Turgay. An update on Puka. Well, as of about 2 hours ago, he did not return to practice this week, so it doesn't look like his window is opening quite just yet. So those fantasy gamers that were hoping to see his window open, not quite just yet for Puka Nacua. They said that his return could have been in week 5, but definitely not looking anywhere near that at this stage. Week 7 was optimistic. Now we're looking more like maybe week 8, 9, or 10. So something to continue to monitor. Sorry we couldn't give you any better news than that, Turgay. But let's move on. We still have a couple.
One note on that though, Mike. Too, going back to just painting the story of what's in front of us, at the standings 1 and 4 are the Rams. If this divergence continues to happen where the Rams are falling away, you have to ask yourself, what is the motive to rush Puka Nacua? So it goes two ways. With the Niners, with McCaffrey, they've bought time. With the Rams, they may be in the spot where they're like, this is a lost season. If they get to the point of it being a lost season, that's going to buy more time for Puka Nacua to recover. And that isn't necessarily what you want for your fantasy teams. But by all means, the Rams are super competitive. I don't see them throwing in the towel, but numbers become reality. And just keep watching the standings. Let the standings also inform some of your real life and fantasy decisions. Good
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah, man. So Malik Neighbors, I thought he was going to return this week, likely to return from that concussion in week 7, bearing any sort of more setbacks. Dontavian Wicks is dealing with an AC sprain and could play in week 7, but the wide receiver, not looking like it's that they're going to rush him into the lineup. So we'll see what happens there. Devon Achane also recovering from a concussion and also a knee injury, leaning towards playing in week 7. Hawkinson set to return from a groin injury probably between week 7 and 8 with a slight lean towards week 7. Tua targeting for a return in week 8. What a blessing that would be for fantasy gamers with any sort of shares of fantasy relevant players in that Miami Dolphins offense. Because if you've drafted a Miami Dolphin, you're probably struggling a little bit right now, especially after the bye. Nico Collins set to return from the foot injury potentially just after week 10. So quite a bit of injuries to go by. And man, I wish there was something out there that we could, help predict this type of situation. Is there anything out there?
There is, but there is also one more that landed. Tajay Spears week to week with a hamstring. So if you have Tony Pollard, his stock is up. In Dynasty, if you're a rebuilding team, sell him if you can. Can you get 2 2s out of it? I know the running back landscape isn't necessarily something where it's like, hey, I'll just get a first for a running back. But try and be creative, maybe a second and a pick swap in future years. There's something that you can push together, especially if you're rebuilding. But stock up and redraft. If you can buy and redraft, by all means, do so. But if there was a way for us, Mike, like you said, to find injuries, I think there is a way, and we got something for you.
Hey, you're in your fantasy draft, and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone. I don't want him. And you're like, I don't know. I don't think you can predict injuries. Well, guess what? Now you can! Injury proneness is real! At Player Profiler, we have the data on these players, and it's all in the Injury Finder app. Their injury track record back through time, exactly where they were injured, how severe it is. We look at the BMI data, and we crunch it all together, and we give you probabilities that a player will miss multiple games this NFL season, as well as the complete database of NFL injuries and the ability to compare two players and look at their injury track record. The Injury Finder is powerful, and it's only $5. If it's worth it to have that peace of mind when you're drafting, go get it.
All right. Well, the Detroit Lions, they completely demolished the Dallas Cowboys 47-9. What do we make of this game and its fantasy impact?
So it's another dog walk city, 47-9, Lions over the Cowboys. The Lions now 4-1. They get a matchup against the Vikings next week. Cowboys 3-3 dog water, third in the NFC East. Not good. Surprisingly, they're looking up at the Washington Commanders. Now this game, haves and have-nots. It was just a narration there. That's just the tempo of the story, the direction these teams are going in. Jared Goff, 315 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 25 points this week, QB4 in 4-point passing touchdowns. Dak Prescott, 178 yards, 2 interceptions, QB24. Fantasy impact, Jared Goff's performance fed families. Dak Prescott's performance is making people still have to go to their jobs the next day. The Lions get a challenging Vikings defense, and the Cowboys get a bye week before facing the 49ers. Woof. David Montgomery, new contract, excellent day. 80 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, RB7, 21 points. At ADP, you're laughing to the bank. Acquisition cost is everything there. Really cool to see David Montgomery thrive with what was revealed as far as people harassing him on social media his rookie season. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12.1 fantasy points, RB18 on the week. Keep starting Gibbs and Montgomery. For right now, ADP Montgomery has been the better value. For the have-nots, Rico Dowdle, 25 yards, 5 carries, 5 receptions, 30 yards. Nothing special. Zeke, 8 for 17. The Cowboys' backfield is a stay away in managed leagues. Pivot over to the halves again. Jameson Williams, 3 catches, 76 yards, a touchdown. Boom bust. And Jamo was a big boom. 17.7 fantasy points. Gives him wide receiver 15 heading into the night. It is still volatile, but in managed leagues, as your wide receiver 3, and sometimes as your wide receiver 2, you could certainly do worse. Injuries also may force your hand. Sam Laporta got in the action. Yak ability, 52-yard reception for a touchdown. Only 1 target in the game, so still concerning moving forward, but nice to see some life. Amon-Ra St. Brown saved his day with a touchdown, 4 catches for a 13-point PPR performance. Going right back to Amon-Ra next week. Lamb, 7 for 89 yards. Your top 2 pick is not looking so good. Collectively, Amon-Ra and Lamb didn't bring the fireworks show, but they're in your lineups every single week. There was a lot of fantasy goodness to be had between these 2 teams. However, Dallas is truncated to Dak, Lamb, and Ferguson. For Detroit, it's anybody who puts on a jersey. So our combat zone, Mike, in the summer, between Amon-Ra and CeeDee Lamb, giving you performances that are okay, but it could definitely be better. I see better days ahead for both players. What do you think of that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some situational advantages that these guys will bring, and I think they're about to happen because there's going to be some, divisional games that are going to create some animosity between some teams, and we're going to see some higher scoring affairs. And I definitely think that with close games, close matchups will bring some better fantasy, outputs from these guys because we know when the game is on the line, who they rely on as their top guys. And if you look at the scheme of games that Dallas has played and Detroit has played, they've kind of been washy-wishy, like some higher level, not so close affairs. So once we see some of these happen, I think we're going to see both these guys elevate. Now, somebody that was elevated from the bench to the starting lineup, and it's the dawn of a new era in New England, and it's led by the electric rookie quarterback Drake May. In his first start, he ignited hope among Patriots fans, showcasing a glimpse of what the future holds for the storied franchise. In a league where young quarterbacks are taking center stage, May shine brightly, throwing 3 touchdowns and bringing a spark to an offense that has struggled to find its rhythm. Despite the loss to the Texans, there's a sense of optimism surrounding the team that simply wasn't there before. From the opening drive, there were nerves, but Drake May quickly settled in, displaying poise under pressure. His stat line of 20 completions on just 33 attempts wasn't great, but he threw for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns. It speaks volumes about his potential, even with a couple turnovers. The excitement generated was palpable. The fans couldn't help but rally behind him. There was a sense of optimism there. You could just feel it in the crowd, and he elevated guys like Kayshon Boutte, who caught a stunning 40-yard touchdown pass. The connection not only marked May's first touchdown as a pro, but highlighted the chemistry he's starting to build with his receiving core that is young and inexperienced. Tight end Hunter Henry found the pay dirt and was a spotlight in this game, but let's not forget about the wideout receiver Demario Douglas, who caught a 35-yard touchdown, making his first of his career. This moment was huge not just for Douglas, but the entire Patriots team. It showcased May's ability to distribute the ball and make plays happen, igniting hope for the future of the New England Patriots. Young talent like Douglas and Jalen Polk, who wasn't, a huge point in this game, but, surely he's going to be involved moving forward in a league where optimism can be fleeting. The energy surrounding Drake May's debut is encouraging, and it's the chance for the Patriots to redefine their identity and move away from their struggles of the last couple years. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. Drake May didn't even need to showcase his upside on the ground either. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this Drake May situation brings folks to us. So now, if you're enjoying the show, don't miss out on more exclusive content. Subscribe to Player Profiler, the YouTube channel at Profiler News, and then follow us on Twitter at Profiler_NFL, and visit our website at playerprofiler.com/news for all the latest and breaking news and its impact on fantasy football. Stay ahead of the game with Player Profiler. Jeremiah, lead the way for a bullish and bearish.
Hey, we got bullish and bearish. We alternate every week. We got something good for you. Ready for it?
0-1. M.O. Come on.
Man, like what? I just had these intrusive thoughts. Like, what if I just played that like 8 times in a row and just acted like it never happened and just gaslit people? Because that is a pretty fire beat and it gets me hyped up. But what I'm not hyped up about, Mike, I'm bearish right now on the Cardinals offense and shootouts.
Yeah.
But we are bullish on Canadian Thanksgiving. We have to put that out there. I'm bearish on the Cardinals offense and shootouts. Part of why the Cardinals don't do so well in these projected shootouts is the defense can't stop the run, but the Cardinals don't answer back as they should. Like, what gives? Kyler, week 1, QB 15, 14 points. Week 3 versus Detroit, 15.8 points, 17th. Commanders, 10 points, QB 25. What are we doing here? The Commanders? Green Bay, QB 21 with 11.96 points. So that's 4 weeks. Weeks 2, Kyler was QB1. Week 5, Kyler was QB5. But this is 4 weeks now where it's been a huge disappointment. This is a feast or famine in 1 QB leagues. You're definitely feeling it. And you try and get a little bit of positional advantage in 1 QB leagues. It's a little more difficult. It's easier to get that edge in Superflex leagues. But the problem is, in a 1 quarterback league, these 4 different weeks where Kyler has struggled, he's hurting the outcome in your win-loss record. So it's been a massive disappointment as well when you're aiming to start Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison Jr. feasted. He was wide receiver 1 in week 2 versus the Rams. All other finishes, ready for this? Wide receiver 101, wide receiver 20, 26, wide receiver 60. This week he didn't register anything for points. He had to leave the game with that concussion. Very sad for him. Trey McBride has 2 finishes as a tight end 4, 0 touchdowns. There are no 20-point fantasy games for McBride. And for a tight end who we hoped would take that leap into the old Travis Kelce territory, and combined with the draft capital that you had, McBride has not had the boom weeks that we wish he would have after 6 weeks. Surprisingly enough, though, McBride is still highly ranked, and it's hard not to at the tight end position. To put a bow on Kyler Murray, heading into week 6, Kyler was QB7. But this is now 4 out of 6 weeks where Kyler has disappointed. We expect a top 5 quarterback performance with passing and rushing combined weekly, and right now we aren't getting that. So for right now, I am bearish collectively on the concepts of a plan of the Cardinals offense. Mike, what do you make of that? And then I'm interested to see who you're bullish on with George Kittle.
Yeah, I mean, I invested quite a bit in Kyler Murray headed into this year, and it's just not paying out the way we thought it would. So they got to find something there. And Trey McBride coming in and merging a bit definitely helps our ease our situation because the tight end has been not so great. But yeah, like, I think we need a big change there, and something needs to happen there in Arizona, especially when there's so many favorable matchups that we're just salivating over. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Mike. We got a loaded question for who to pick up, who to trade. This person says they have Josh Jacobs, Ken Walker, Brees Hall, Kyron Williams, Madison. So they seem loaded at running back. Receivers are DJ Moore, Tank Dell, Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley. Waiver wire pickups are Josh Downs and Tracy Jr. I'm assuming that they picked Josh Downs and Tracy Jr., or if Josh Downs and Tracy Jr. are on the waiver wire, who to pick up. This may be a 10-team league. We don't have full context. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Calvin Ridley or Jacoby Myers in this situation, so I'd be looking to move on from both those pieces in this in this lineup. Josh Downs, I love the upside, whether it's with Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco. I mean, Joe Flacco brings more upside. Tyrone Tracy's got a lot of upside there. I think he's gonna, he's carved out a role regardless whether Singletary returns right away. I think he's carved out a decent role. So I'd be looking to move away from Myers and Ridley if this was the case, to move into those situations. If I were to make a trade, some of these pieces here, you can get some value out of. Definitely be looking to move one of your running backs, potentially Josh Jacobs. That would be the guy I'd be looking to move away from. He's got some upside, but he's got the name value, and I'd be looking to upgrade at wide receiver there if I could. Absolutely.
And I think what you have to do as well, and it's counterintuitive or it just doesn't feel good, is the fact that you're loaded at the running back position. You have to piece together, find somebody else who has receiver depth, because really what it looks like is your receivers are hurting. You have this depth at running back. Granted, it's an attrition position. It could be bad tomorrow, but you can't bank on that. Right now, you have such a strength. I think you need to deal from strength from the running back position. It could be Brees Hall tonight. You could ask for a king's ransom when he goes off. I'm very high on Brees Hall tonight. It could be Josh Jacobs, but you want to find a team that has depth at wide receiver, and you're just going to match and converge as long as the two of you as trade partners see, hey, it's Mike and I, right? Mike has these running backs, and I'm loaded at receiver. If he and I just see, look, my receivers 1 through 4 and your running backs 1 through 4 are comparable, let's make something match. I think you've got a liquid trade there in your redraft market. If you've got people who are going to be greedy and not want to give you a higher end wide receiver for one of your higher end running backs, then it's going to be a frigid market. So I would really try and go from that depth. Mike said Josh Jacobs. I really love the idea of Brees and Ken Walker, keeping those two together. Between Kyron and Josh Jacobs, we talk about team levels. What's the motivation for Kyron Williams and the Rams to stick, not infiltrate or incorporate, sorry. Well, Corum could infiltrate some of that backfield. I'm just trying to think out loud here. I think you end up having to trade from a position of depth. So I wouldn't, because what Mike said about Ridley and Myers, not really liking them, your trade partner is also going to say, I don't really like Ridley and I don't really like Jacoby Myers. Yeah. Mike,
Agreed.
what do you got for us for? Good question. What do you got, Mike, for George Kittle for bullish?
Well, you know what? I in a landscape where, you never really thought that we'd be in this state with the tight end landscape, especially with the way they were going off the board earlier in fantasy drafts. George Kittle is a consistent, dominant force in fantasy football. And his performance this week was no different, coming in and out of the lineup, going into the blue 10, and then going on the field and catching a touchdown. He's got 5 touchdowns over the last 4 games with an average of 14.5 fantasy points per game in Yahoo default scoring. He's outpaced the next closest tight end, Dallas Goedert, and Brock Bowers, who sit at 10.5. This significant lead highlights Kittle's crucial role in the tight end landscape and makes him a valuable asset for fantasy managers. At 31, he understands the urgency of the moment for the 49ers, and they're in a critical window to compete for a championship with the potential roster changes looming. Kittle is keenly aware of that season that could be the best chance for him to secure a Super Bowl title. His commitment to maximizing the opportunity is evident in his performances, and the team faces challenging opponents in the upcoming weeks, starting with the Super Bowl champions and 5-0 Kansas City Chiefs. I'm looking for Kittle to continue his dominance in this game, makes him even more compelling in rosters as it continues on. And somebody that I didn't have a whole lot of shares of, I wish I did at this stage of the game there, Jeremiah, is that George Kittle.
I like it a lot. And in the interest of time, since we're creeping up against the game,
Yeah.
I'm going to cut into the coach's corner, chef's table. I'll skip the little intro music just because I want to get people to game day. Josh Allen, QB6 on the season. Funny enough, it's low for him. 2 QB1 overall finishes this year. 3 other finishes, QB 19, 28, 29. Allen has 160 rush yards, 6 at the quarterback position, 2 rushing touchdowns. Ranks 4th and is 7th in carry with 26. His QBR is number 1 in the league, 4th in best ball points added. Expect Josh Allen to get back on track against the Jets tonight, although Allen will need to be efficient with Aaron Rodgers bleeding the clock on the other end. James Cook, what we're missing now is no James Cook dealing with a toe foot injury that he rested plenty during the week. You're not going to have him. RB5 on the season, that's what they're missing. Ironically, Cook has 3 top 12 running back finishes, and ironically has been RB5 despite only a 55.4% snap share. So they'll miss that. It's going to be a split between Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. Give me the Josh Allen rushing overs. I have Allen at over 6.5 rushing attempts on underdog champions. And James Cook, again, they're missing him. To the receiving weapons, Stephon Diggs being gone does leave a void. From a team standpoint, the Bills never got over the top with Stephon Diggs, but the Bills reached their highest peak with Diggs in place. So you picture a hill, get to the top, and you creep and fall back. Well, the fact is, even though the Bills creeped and fell back, they got the highest they ever did with Stephon Diggs. So we'll see. I know addition by subtraction exists, but that is really tough. Dalton Kincaid, tight end 12, sits at tight end 18 heading into tonight's game. So into the week, he was tight end 12. So it just changed with bullish finishes as tight end 5, 10, and 14. This is scraping something together positive as Kincaid was set to be a tight end 1 option in the Bills offense. It's a copycat league, and we thought we would get the Bills with Kincaid and their own Travis Kelce. Has not been the case. Kincaid is 2nd in unrealized air yards with 136, 4th in yak with 116 yards, and 2nd in deep targets. I think he finds the touchdown end zone tonight. I have a plus 340 bet for Dalton Kincaid. So boom, there it is. Dawson Knox, only 5 targets on the season, but a 52.6% snap share. Khalil Shakir, 11th in yards after catch, 1st in catchable target rate, 50th in receptions. Keon Coleman, he isn't Stephon Diggs. That's just the easiest summation. 80th in target share, 65th in air yard share. Been nothing special. Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins, both at 700 and plus 750 to score a touchdown. That's about where the books have them. I like the chances of Matt Collins on a long shot finding the end zone tonight. I heard you talking with Lewis on the news tonight. And for me, my prediction, I've got the Canadian team in honor. Okay, they're almost Canada, the Buffalo Bills. I've got a bunch of Labatt Blues getting thrown back in Buffalo. All right, for the fans, and the fans are going to celebrate. Granted, we're down in Jersey, but it's going to be a Bills victory with ease. So go Bills tonight. What do you got for us, Mike, on the Jets?
Well, we got a quick question here. Hopefully we get it in before your lineup is set. And I'm going to go with Ty Johnson in this one over Braylon Allen and Ray Davis based off of opportunity, I think. I like Braylon Allen as an opportunity there, but I think this is the Breece Hall show tonight. As we break down this this clash with the Jets, I don't see a whole lot of upside for anybody other than the running backs in this situation. Ty Conklin has some upside too. There's a good matchup there for him, but look for the Jets to really try and exploit the weak Bills run defense. You know, they've had big games given up to many running backs, including a monster game to Derrick Henry. So I'm expecting something similar on the ground for the Jets this week, and looking like it's going to be a tight game, but yes, like Jeremiah said, I'm not expecting anything other than a Bills victory in this one. And for fantasy managers, you know, you're at the end of the Monday night. Hopefully, what you need is what you're going to get tonight, and whether it's a big game from Garrett Wilson or a stonker from Conquer that I need, a stonker from Ty Conklin, that would be great.
Hey,
Jeremiah.
just a great game that we have set up. I almost said happy Canada Day, but happy Thanksgiving
Thanks,
to
man.
all you great Canadians. And, you know, Mike, before we go, what's your favorite Canadian beer? Is it Labatt Blue, Molson, or is there something that we're not aware of?
Oh, it's all the craft beer that we have up here, but I guess a Canadian generic domestic beer would have to be probably Molson Canadian because it has our name in it, I guess. So let's go with that
Yep,
one.
I
You know
like
what?
that. Yep.
I should have been the one wearing the backwards hat today because our Thanksgiving is backwards. But like, let's give it up for Jeremiah looking fresh with his
Yep.
backwards hat. I like the look, my man.
Yeah, I feel like Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, where he's like, "What's up?" You
What's
know,
up?
or Steve Buscemi when he's like, How do you do, fellow kids?" So everybody, good luck tonight. And look, if week 6 sucked, it's because a lot of guys got hurt. The medians are low in your leagues. If you have the median scoring, just understand it happens. Move on to next week, week 7, and advance and survive. There'll be better days ahead. So we will see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.